Welcome to Let's Talk Antigonish, the podcast where we sit down with neighbors, experts, and friends to explore the stories, the questions, and the big little issues that shape life in our town, one conversation at a time. This week, we're talking with Corey LeBlanc, a name you might know, a freelance journalist who worked for years and years with the Casket. Well, Corey is back in his journalistic duties. This time he's writing for Antigonish This Week, a news supplement that's coming out in the Guysborough Journal. We ask Corey all about his life as a journalist, his time at the Casket, why he loves local news so much, and what the plans are for Antigonish This Week. It's an exciting time for news here in Antigonish, and we're very excited to be sitting down with Corey. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Antigonish. It's me, Justin, and Anuj.
Hi there.
We are your hosts. And today we are joined by Corey LeBlanc, a freelance journalist and a name that's probably familiar to a lot of people in Antigonish, a journalist that's been working in and around Antigonish for, I would say, decades at this point, right, Corey?
I came to Antigonish in it'll be almost 23 years ago and spent 18 with the Casket, and then moving back to my home in the North Sydney area of Cape Breton 5 years ago when I was unfortunate victim of salt wire cuts. I'll leave it at that.
So salt wire chased you back over to Cape Breton. And
that's right.
Okay. And so at the moment you're a freelance journalist. So who are you writing for?
Mainly now the Guysborough Journal, which we'll talk about more as we go along. Still have a relationship with the Strait Area Reporter, of course, based in Port Hawkesbury, another newspaper from the region. And still do some things for St. FX.
I would like to start off, Anuj, if this is okay, with talking about the Guysborough Journal, because that was a sort of a news story that popped up on Facebook, which seems to be the place where all news comes out these days, about the Guysborough Journal having a new supplement, I think it's called, and it's called Antigonish This Week. So can you explain what Antigonish This Week is?
So this was our second week. Actually, today, the second Antigonish This Week will be out on newsstands. It's almost like you're getting two newspapers in one now with the Journal, where for quite some time the owners, Helen and Alan Murphy, of course, well known in Antigonish, Alan with deep roots from the Ohio. You always have to remember the when you say the Ohio.
The Ohio, correct.
The Murphy family in Antigonish County. So they launched the Journal in 1994 and certainly have established themselves a true community newspaper for sure. And they've stuck to that and been successful with that. And I know in recent years with the, I would say for many, a void in community news coverage in Antigonish, and I may be biased in that. I'll let people form their own opinion. But so they were approached about starting a publication or doing something Antigonish related, which seemed to be logical considering Antigonish and Guysborough as well have a lot of crossover and shared interests and shared community ideas and such. So last week on the 14th in that edition, it's a section within the main journal, and it'll focus on happenings in Antigonish. So I'm doing the main news writing and some sports and some features. We have Emilie Chiasson will be doing some feature writing. Emilie ran for mayor in the last municipal election. Of course, a familiar name, and she's been doing some great stuff over recent years. And in the debut Antigonish This Week, she did a piece with Jamie Ross, who is a legend in Antigonish, especially out in his community of Arisag, about his lobster fishing, and she was out on the boat. So just a great interactive piece. Katie Edwards as well, now with advancement, of course, a long-time English faculty member at St. FX. She'll be doing some things. We also have Brian Kennedy, another, his boots on the ground doing some photography, excellent photographer. Most would be familiar of him with him, running around at St. FX sports events. So the response early on has been strong.
So you'll be doing some political coverage, it sounds like.
Yeah, news coverage, sports, of course. We know how big that is in Antigonish. Arts and entertainment. With the first one, I tried to strike a balance. We had a story with the town and county, some sports features, a nice, the Jamie Ross piece, my piece with Laura Teasdale, who, Justin, you know very well about her return home and how she's continued her career in the theater and so many other things. So trying to strike that balance. It'll be certainly a challenge, a good one, because there's so much going on in Antigonish. I know my 18 years at the Casket, I never had a week I didn't have trouble finding or doing stories. And there's always something we could sink our teeth into, and it was never finding things, it was finding space for things. And I think that's going to be a challenge as we go forward with Antigonish this week.
Yeah, I mean, that it's enough to support an entire newspaper, which it did for many, many years.
Right.
So, but more on the journal. So it's a supplement within the Guysborough Journal, which means for subscribers to the journal, it comes to their door, or you can pick it up in stores.
Right.
And,
You pick up and it's not new to Antigonish newsstands. It's been there all along. You look for the Guysborough Journal when you go into Hawthorne Convenience or wherever you pick up your newspapers. And then, of course, you have the subscriber option if you're interested in that. I know we have certainly Antigonish subscribers to the journal even before.
So you got into journalism. You ended up for working for local newspapers. So I'm curious as to what got you into it, and what do you love about local news and local journalism as opposed to going to Toronto and working for a big broadsheet?
I guess I could jokingly say talent. It can't be from one of wherever the Globe and Mail or the Toronto Star, but that was the other thing I loved so much about Antigonish was it had some city-type vibes, but it was still small. And in between things in my mid-20s, returned to school, did a media school thing, actually focused mostly on radio training, and had them more or less tell me, well, your Cape Breton accent will impede you. You probably should look at or think about you won't be an on-air radio person. So,
wow.
Anyway, around the time I was finishing the program, it was just one of those things that, again, at that time, a straight area reporter was looking for a reporter. And it was kind of, I always say they just need a warm body. And I took a job there and was fortunate enough to come across some great people that were experienced, and one being the late Alina McDonald. A lot of your listeners will know, former artistic director at Mulgrave Road Theatre, for instance. That was her initial career, but became a well-known community newspaper and radio reporter, and learned a lot from her and spent almost a year there. And then chance come up at the Casket, and I had a sister living in Antigonish, so I had some familiarity with Antigonish. And, of course, interested in sports and such, so to be dropped in the middle, especially at St. FX, but everything else I learned was going on there. And then kind of rolled for about 18 years. But as far as the community newspaper, it's so pure. And I always said, and I joked with Helen the other day, I said, no, you're paying me, but I always said I work for the community. And I really felt that. And that helped, too, in terms of people starting to trust me, because once I got there and got familiar and they saw that I was interested in showing up at events and all those things. So again, it's just celebrating the community, I guess. And sometimes, more often than not, it's on the positive side, but there are things that negative, if you will, or core type stuff, which luckily I didn't have to do too much of that over the years. But it's just it's the people. It's celebrating people, I think. I always thought, and the people next door. And I still think with social media and all those things, there's still that element that mom and dad or grandma or grandpa see that picture in the casket Like I was in a lot of homes over the years that the picture's cut out and it's on the fridge. And I still think there's a place for that. And I did embrace it, not thinking I was going to be basically my career in community newspapers, but I couldn't see doing anything but, at least on the newspaper side. So it just kind of all worked out. And again, no better place than Antigonish to work at a community newspaper because there were so many vibrant sports, vibrant arts community. And people probably remember me that had to, crawling up to the front of the crowd at Christmas concerts and getting on the floor and taking pictures and going home all dusty. But that was as much fun as interviewing Brian Mulrooney a few times, although I enjoyed that as well.
Corey, so lovely to hear your thoughts and the tone. There's almost a nostalgic undertone to what you're saying. Given your long history with journalism in Cape Breton, in Antigonish and rural Nova Scotia, how would you characterize the role of journalism in today's Antigonish? What role does journalist and journalism play today? And also, if you can combine with that, there is a rich history, but Antigonish is changing. You have now people at the university coming from all over the world. You have newcomers coming from all over the world, from different parts of Canada who don't necessarily identify themselves as Antigonishers. How is the change in the community and society reflecting in the journalism that we are doing and we want to do?
Example in the importance of the role, I think, to get back to the consolidation of the past couple of years. And of course, as we know, the town and county looking at becoming one municipal unit. And it doesn't matter what side, of course, what side you're on in terms of it should have happened, shouldn't have happened. But I think one of the challenges, again, even with all the social media and that, I think it really affected the process not having a community newspaper like someone at, because I joked with some of the officials, I said I would have been at every open session, every meeting, and asking questions about why you're doing this, and not saying that, that I would have all the answers or find all the answers, but certainly I think left the void not having that weekly newspaper during all that process, helping to get the message out, not the message, but helping say, well, X is doing this, Y is doing this is why they're doing it, the rationale, as much as there were information sessions and such. There was a void, and I know not because it was me, but I know people were getting the journal because I was doing some stuff on it in the journal with both sides and everyone involved. So I think as far as the role, it's, of course, things like that, news and keeping people informed. And again, back to the events, like in our first edition, Brian Kenny went to Mayfest. There wouldn't, in the past 5 years, unless Mayfest folks sent in a photo to just being out there. And that's so important, I think, as part of community building, because it creates those bonds. And maybe that segues into, as you said, the changing demographic and news of Antigonish. I think if you went 30 years earlier, there would never, for a variety of reasons, but you would never have seen a photo from a gay pride parade on the front page of the Casket, but we did, and it's just and it kind of related to that, because people would say to me, "Well, there was stuff you probably weren't allowed to do because of the diet," and I have to admit, in 18 years, there was nothing I was told I couldn't cover or couldn't. Because of any sort of religious thing, so I'll say that on my part. But Antigonish, of course, embraced people like the Haddad family, of course, but so many other families and newcomers, and as you said, especially with St. Effect, so many diverse people, and I think that's what makes Antigonish great as well, because it's kind of kind of cliche, but it is a little bit of a melting pot. And I think what's missing, we're not, at least for me, and watching from afar and being, as you said, nostalgic, seeing, that's partly why I think once when I got my walk-up papers, I would have been much more upset 5 years, and nobody wants to lose a job, but because it wasn't, and again, things evolve and such, but it wasn't the Casket I was a part of that we were proud of, and we were out in the community. It was it was a business, and again, I know it's a business, and maybe I was spoiled being part of that. We didn't have to worry about the bottom line and stuff. But that void of the change in Antigonish over the last 5 years, and all these, not a lot of it hasn't been celebrated. At least in a community newspaper way. Of course, there's people like you folks that are getting the message out in other mediums about what's happening in Antigonish and the people, but certainly it's not there in terms of community newspaper. It hasn't been, in my opinion.
Antigonish Farmers Mutual is more than just an insurance provider. They're part of the community. As a mutual insurance company, their profits don't go to shareholders. They're reinvested into the places that matter most. They're proud to support local initiatives like the new Farmers Market building, contribute to St. Martha's Regional Hospital Foundation, and help fund the Quebec for outdoor recreation. Each year, they offer scholarships to help local students achieve their dreams. Choosing Antigonish Farmers Market means not just protecting the future, it means investing in the future of the community. Visit their Main Street location for a quote or some friendly advice.
Let me pivot a little bit and ask you a listener. Again, I think given your length of experience with this, we have different kinds of journalistic approaches. And one is purely news. You capture the news, what is happening, and let people be informed and also form their own opinions. Second could be, again, these are not pure categories. Second can be where you are really looking at some of the issues that our community is facing, say housing or say food security or any such issue, and really help lead that conversation because these are significant challenges in our community. And third can be, again, these are not pure categories, around some of the forks in the road, the contestation that is happening in the community, like amalgamation part, which can have even an editorial section of, what are the editorial opinions about what is happening. So again, these are not pure categories. Where do you think today, and people are consuming news and information, like it or not, as Justin said, from Facebook, from TikTok, from, they don't have time to read newspaper or, so how does one really look at journalism in Antigonish right now, given all these different aspects that we need to cover?
Well, I think, and again, when the community newspaper, it brings it to your doorstep. I know it's in your hand too with social media and stuff, but as you said, it can lead the discussion, put it out there, and sometimes editorialize and take a position, but more often not just my approach always was, it's not, when I was doing the consolidation coverage for the journal, it was, here's the information, maybe this will help you make a decision or take a position. And oftentimes we're the only ones that, let's say, a council meeting. To me, it was just as important to be at that Christmas concert and get some photos as it was to be at Town County Council. Maybe that's...
For your role with Antigonish This Week in the Guysborough Journal, do you think you'll be doing both of those things? Will you be looking at local government issues and also taking photographs of sports? Is that your plan?
Oh, for sure. That'll be certainly coverage. And again, I was sitting and watching a bit of a committee of the whole meeting of the county council last night. They're going through some budget discussions and such. So that definitely any sort of news with both municipalities, sports, Antigonish minor soccer teams submit their scores. And I think it's still fun for, again, families and the young athletes themselves to see their name in the newspaper that they had 2 goals in the team's win. With Brian, as far as the photography, he'll be out there in the field for us for events. Again, like I said, Mayfest and different. I think he'll be popping over to the Special Olympics regionals on Friday, for instance, at St. FX. And as we did with the Casket too, is submissions.
So how does the community get in touch with the Guysborough Journal for story ideas?
You can visit the website, and of course in the print edition, I encourage people to pick up one, see what we're starting to do, and all the contact information is there. For me, it's an email probably to start works best is leblanc.report@gmail.com. I don't mind letting people know that, and there's so much to celebrate. Again, once things get rolling, it'll be more... whether it's me or Emilie or Katie or other people, there'll be other people no doubt coming on board, doing some feature stuff and as things evolve. But I don't think there will ever be a lack of things to write about, and I'm excited about that. And
there's a lot of excitement for sure, as the news is getting out, and people still miss Casket quite a bit, even though what you are going to do is a little bit different than what Casket was doing. So I think this should get the news out. I'm also wondering, how do we make sure that this now continues? Is there a business model that you are pursuing now that will be different, or?
I know Helen and Alan, it'll continue in terms of as they've done for 3 years. I know, again, anecdotally, but I know they never did everything they could and parts of their team over the years to keep a small community newspaper going. That's really, they deserve a lot of credit for, because they, there's an example, Guysborough County, if they didn't, how informed they keep them about issues that in a very rural county, but a vibrant one, and getting their stories out and along the Eastern Shore. And I know they're equally committed to that in Antigonish, but certainly there's a dollars and cents element as well. And I think they'll reflect in their subscriptions and people picking it up again at the Hawthorne conveniences of Antigonish. And as Justin asked about how, let us know. Even with the Casket, it was the same way. We can't be everywhere for everything, and but we'll certainly help people get their message out, and again celebrate what's going on in the community as much as we can. And because there was talk in recent years about a new newspaper of some sort for Antigonish, and this maybe is the start of things, maybe of what could happen down the line. Who knows what may happen? It may inspire some other things, but I think certainly there's a void to be filled in our small little way, and hopefully I'm able to help that along. We'll be able to give people what they want and need, and in return the community shows support for what Helen and Alan and their team, including me, is trying to do.
Anuj and I are big supporters of local news, as you probably imagine, and I agree there's a lot of room for more stories, and we will put links in the show notes to the podcast so people can email you directly or get in touch with you with story ideas. Yeah, because I know we're keen to support local newspaper. I love the potential idea, teasing the idea that this could expand. This could be...
and and I'm not speaking for Helen and Alan, but it may serve as a springboard for who knows what, and by who, maybe it'll further inspire young people, and not just young people, but are doing so many great things in the community.
Yeah, and young people like Justin and me.
Yes, that's right. Okay. The youth like you and
Well, I love the sentiment you said earlier that you work for the community. That's how you felt doing local
Yeah,
news.
and
And
the community
I
journalism.
think if people appreciate that when I was at the Casket, that I really did feel that way, and if there was Thursday evenings after working all day that I may have not have felt like driving to Heatherton for a concert to get a few pictures, but once I got there, saw how people appreciated that we were showing interest in their event or whatever. It was more than a job to me. It was I thought it um, meant something to people, and it meant a lot to me. And that doesn't say it was always positive. There were bumps in the road and people not happy with. Uh,
Let me ask you this, Corey. Can you remember a story that was consequential to this town and county community in your history that really kind of helped shape the opinion or just informed? Can you think of a
well,
story?
I think I'll go back to and relate to the consolidation one, but back further in my early time there, and I don't know if listeners will certainly remember there was back in the early 2000s. It was called annexation amalgamation. Then they kind of put a flowery term, this consolidation, on this time around. But essentially, the town looked to annex part of the county land because, as this challenge remains, the town doesn't have much room to grow within its borders. So, but it was essentially land up around the Post Road area where all that development was happening, where we now have the wall. Like I was there before Walmart. There you go. I remember covering that. All the was Walmart coming to Antigonish, but I thought it helped. Like I remember, and not to pat myself on the back, but there was 3 weeks of hearings between it became the town wanting to annex that land, county wanting to amalgamate. Consolidate. It was amalgamate into one entity, but I went to all the hearings, and every week, although some of it was, and did some full length stuff about what happened at the hearings and what the arguments were. And I know there were countless people saying because they didn't have the time or what have you to go sit through all like that. It was 3 weeks of 8-hour days to listen to lawyers and engineers and all those things making the arguments. So, but we were able to get the message out. These are the sides, and this is what's could happen, and I think
And this is what at stake.
Yeah, and I think again, we got help get the message out and let people make their decisions on what way they thought it should go, or so that's just one example. But most of the ones pop up for me are the people stories and how they shared. One that pops to mind is John Garth MacDonald helping the helpers, the annual event that happens in Antigonish that he and his wife created. And then the young people stories and the sports stories and Special Olympics. That comes to mind because it's this week. Every sport at its purest, and that kind of connects to one of the things of all the things I loved about Antigonish or credited Antigonish for was how it's such an inclusive community, and especially with folks with physical and intellectual disabilities. It's just amazing whether it's the Antigonish CACL workshop or LARSH or all those organizations, how it's a credit to Antigonish and the people, and how those people are made to feel part of the community and are a part of the community.
Is there anything because we should probably wrap up here, is there anything we haven't asked or talked about that you would like people to know about you or journalism or the Guysborough Journal or anything?
Well, we're not trying to be kind of Casket 2.0 or Casket Light or what we're trying to help. And again, I know maybe people think, geez, he's buttering up Helen and Alan Murphy, but again, the credits deserved for them and in an industry that you don't hear much of adding on or expanding, or it's always about, and they really get it in terms of community newspaper, and it's really, again, a credit to them to do their little part to try this, and it'll only go as far as, I think, as people, whether it's providing story ideas or being willing to share their stories and events with us, and hopefully, if they like what they see, stop by the newsstands or take out a subscription. For instance, in Antigonish this week, I did a tribute piece to Father Stanley MacDonald, and I know it drew provincial coverage of his passing and his effect on St. FX, and not by but if people get a chance to read, like, just some of the profound effect he had on people, both his religious and his St. FX superfan life, and that's the thing, you would have been stories, and again, just because of the going a little deeper, you wouldn't get a piece like that anywhere other than in this Antigonish this week for this week in the journal. Give us a try, I guess, for sure. And I think, again, maybe we can, the thirst is there, certainly, I think, so hopefully we'll be able to quench it a little bit.
That's great. And we will do what we can to support.
Well, that's great, guys.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad my podcast game view was with you guys. You made it a lot of fun, and it's certainly great to be back covering Antigonish more and more, and looking forward to helping people share their stories.
Yeah, welcome back to Antigonish journalism scene.
Yes, welcome back.
You never know. I joked with Helen that maybe my contract will be a condo in Antigonish if things really take off. So, or I said at least a tent in Whidden's campground, maybe.
That's right.
I'll start there.
Thanks for listening to Let's Talk Antigonish. Don't hesitate to subscribe. Just go to letstalkantigonish.ca and click. Voila! You'll receive new episodes right in your email inbox.
We would like you to consider making a small or large contribution to get Antigonish talking. This podcast is a labor of love, and we know you like it, don't you? Please consider making a contribution, small or large, maybe a monthly subscription, or a thank you for doing this step. We are hoping to buy some recording equipment to make it possible to record our interviews with a more professional setup, and pay for our audio editing software and web hosting and all that, and make it truly community-driven idea. Depending on the level of public support, we would like to engage local producers and journalists to create more regular deep dive news stories about life here in Antigonish and compensate them for their time and passion.
Right now, it's just Anuj and I doing this in our free time. You can read all about the podcast and ways to support us at letstalkantigonish.ca. And if you're a local business that wants to sponsor the podcast or even place an audio ad, we are certainly not opposed. And remember to get in touch with us if you have an idea for a future episode or a burning question about life in Antigonish that you want us to explore and get answers to. We welcome all feedback. Just email us at letstalkantigonish@gmail.com. Let's talk Antigonish.